بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر الله أكبر لا
Hello again and welcome to Forum for a Better Understanding in its 165th weekly edition. We are so privileged today to have a conversation with an Islamic scholar and international speaker. Though we've had many programs with local Islamic leaders from the three different main centers here in town, from the Islamic Cultural Center on Nice, from the Masjid Fresno, and also from the Masjid Al-Aqaba, but today, coming to us very recently from India, we have a scholar, Yusuf Estes. Shaikh Estes is a convert to Islam. From what I hear, at age 47, he had a tremendous awakening of his faith, being that he was a Christian preacher and musician and owner of a music empire. Somehow, he's going to explain how God spoke to him in a special way and he became Islamic. The conversation this week will begin today, and we'll be with you at the same time next week with part 2 of this conversation, which I've entitled, The Truth of Islam. I was at the Masjid Fresno the night before we had this taping, and it was wonderful to meet the Sheikh and to see a whole mosque of people, young, old, and in between, men and women, sharing an interest in what he was sharing with them. He has, I think, hundreds of websites, and we're going to be talking about some of the main ones later. But I think we should let Shaikh Yusuf Estes introduce himself a little bit more and why it is that he's in Fresno and why it is we're having our program today. Thank you, Shaikh, for being here with us.
Jim, it's a pleasure to be with you, and it's a real big honor and for me to have a chance to be here with you guys, and also for the folks there at home. Wanted to mention that you probably gave the closest to the reality of an introduction that I've heard about me in a long time.
Nice.
Because as you become more and more known around the world, people have a tendency to get further and further away from the real deal. I've heard myself introduced to the extent that when I'm sitting backstage listening to this introduction going on, and I'm thinking, who is coming out? And they say, here he is, Yusuf Estes. I go, that wasn't me. But you said you got the age right, you got the background right, everything. The only thing I will take exception to the empire.
Oh, yes.
I want to play that down a little bit.
We will play. He's not an emperor. But the idea that you are very, very available.
I was called a benign dictator once.
But at least benign.
Benign.
Now, where we want to go in our conversation today and next week is for you to give a primer to, I think our viewing audience is mainly non-Muslim. So why don't we begin with this topic of Islam in life and society, and let me throw out some words to you, and let you either do a etymology of it, a bit of an anecdotal comment, a bit of a reflection, whatever you'd like to open up the concept. Allah, the main thing we need to learn from the Islamic community. Tell us about Allah.
Can I ask you a question? I like to play both ways. Okay?
Oh, thank you.
You know, we have our show too, so because I don't have a chance to get you to Texas to do our show, so I'm gonna we'll flip it back and forth. Fair?
Fair enough.
Cool. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you know any Arabic?
Very, very little.
Okay.
A few words. 5 words.
Okay. So, what the word ilah from Arabic, ilah, is the equivalent of the English word God. Ilah. Or El in Hebrew. El.
Yep.
You're familiar with that?
El.
Okay,
God.
so, yeah, that's God. So, if we have a word, ilah, and it means God, now I'm going to ask you, we have a word Allah, what do you have to equal it? And you can look through the bag of tricks and you're never going to find it.
I went to a lecture and I heard from the presenter that there is no word. The problem is in English. We have no word in English.
Who said that?
That would be Shaikh Yusuf Estes. I heard him in a talk last night, actually.
Where'd you guys get this guy?
So the big problem is in English. We don't have the word.
For Jews and Christians and Muslims, all of us are suffering from a deficiency in the English language because it does not appropriately present what was said in the manuscripts. If you go back to the Hebrew and try to bring it to English, you've always got a problem. If you go back to Aramaic, you've got a problem. If you go back even to Koine Greek, you've got problems because these languages are rich. And they bear fruit when you speak, and the poetry is so excellent. And when you bring it to English, to a word that was actually Hud. It was Hud. That was what it was. That's how they pronounced it. And that just had to do for everything. So, actually, God is something worshipped. A deity, which could be a rock, a stick, a stone, a bone. That could be worked into poetry, by the way. We'll think about that. Anyway, so you got this for deity. All right. But when you say Allah, that's His name. And it's unique in that it can't be made plural, nor can it have gender. Now, this is cool because, especially for the women who say, how come the Bible is written from a man's point of view? Well, it's not really. The Bible wasn't written from a man's point of view. When God sent revelation of the Bible, what He was sending down was from Himself. But He even says He Himself about Himself because He doesn't call Himself it. No. But God's not having, male characteristics, let's leave it at that, nor female.
No.
He's way beyond that, above that. And so when we get that in our mind, then the other thing you might say, well, we find in Hebrew and we find also in Arabic, in the Quran and in the Torah, this reference to we and our and us.
That's right.
But this is the royal plural like the king or the queen uses. So it's not really God saying me and my army or me and my buddies. I'm going to have some kind of a director's meeting tonight with my guys, or, it's not like that. So Allah is the name of God, and it's also the name used by Jews and Christians who are Arabs.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Following on that, how would you summarize for us a Muslim's relationship with God? Sometimes we think it's very important to know in a faith, do they find God judge? Do they find God merciful? Do they find God advocate? Do they find God a defender? What is the relationship mostly that Muslims feel for their God?
Let me throw something at you and see how it sets. If somebody recognizes there is really a deity, a God, and even if they're not sure who is he and what is he and so on, but they recognize all this didn't come about by any accident. Therefore, there must be a God. There's a creator, a sustainer. Somebody's taking care of me. I have a thought, I need something, and then somehow it just pops up. Now, how can that keep happening, So there's something out there. And what should be my relation? My relation should be what? And if they determine that they want to surrender themselves over to the Lord, and they want to submit to any commandment or authority, submit to the authority of the one above, and they want to obey any injunctions that He might offer, and they want to do this sincerely and in peace. Does that sound good?
That does. It sounds like Islam.
Well, that's what the word means.
All of that in that one word.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
And this is what the relationship of an Islamic believer is: a total submission,
to Him,
total commitment, a total resignation of self to this greater, and doing it, as you say, in sincerity and sa'alam, in peace. All of that is...
The peace that we're talking about, a lot of times I hear Muslims say Islam is peace, and that's not really right. That's wrong to say that, because it doesn't mean the kind of peace like that we'd like to see, peace in the Middle East, peace between brothers and so. But this is a kind of peace that you have in your life, that no matter what is sent to you from Him, you're in peace. Now, there's two extremes here. Suppose somebody has all of the material things that come at them very fast, like winning the lottery or something like this, and then said, oh my God, and go crazy, right? So that's not peace. So if I was given these great riches and wealth of this world, but to be in peace and say, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be forever. Then the other side of it, that when these calamities and disasters come to a person, but they're in peace with it, and they say, this too shall pass. Yep. That's the middle road that we're looking for.
Yep.
Now, whoever does this would be called an Islam-er, because that'd be the verb.
Yeah.
Yeah, Islam or Aslama, and then he's an Islamer. Well, we don't use suffixes in Arabic language. We use prefixes for the verb. So instead of like walk, talk, think, stink, like that. Sorry. Anyway, they use the prefix mu. So it would be mu'adhin, the one who calls the prayer, musafir, the one who travels, and mu-Islam, Muslim.
Wow, that's where we get Muslim.
Yeah, but say Muslim.
Muslim.
Yeah, don't say Muslim. You know why? Those are the detractors
That's right.
of Islam that called them Muslim, because
Muslims.
it actually means wrongdoer. Mazlum. Mazlum
We
means
used to
the
see it
wrongdoer.
printed Muslim.
On purpose.
Now we see it much more Muslim. Interesting.
Muslim.
And
Mu, say mu.
Mu.
Slim.
Slim.
Yeah, like a slim cow. Muslim.
Muslim. Speaking of the next thing on our topics, we're on to topic 3 of 50, so we have to go fast. This book, the Quran, could you introduce us to what the Quran is for those of us who only know the Bible? Tell us about the Quran.
Well, when you hold it like that and say Quran, it's not really oxymoron, but it doesn't really make sense. I'm going to tell you why. Because what you have in your hand is a kitab. That's a book. Okay? It's not Quran. You can't hold Quran in your hand. Why? Quran means that which is being recited.
Reciting.
So it's like holding up a hymnal and saying this is music. No, it's not. It represents music when you put it down and start playing it. But as long as you're holding your hand, it's just a book of paper. As soon as you start singing the song, it becomes music. But when I was in the music business, we'd say, where's your sheet music? It's over there. It's not really sheet music, a sheet of music. That's funny. See, do you catch that? But we've used it so long, nobody could ever separate the word sheet and music and say anything other than, yeah, it's this. Yeah. But in fact, that's the same problem we have when people say this is Quran, and it's not. Because Quran says in it that Allah will preserve it, and nobody can even touch it. It says right in it, nobody can even touch it except the pure, which are the angels. And you say, well, you just touched it, and I just touched it. I'm no angel. So how did that happen? Well, because this is not really the Quran itself. It represents something that's with Allah. It's His speech. Quran means God's recitation. He recited it. The angel Gabriel heard it, and then he passed it to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, just as he did with Moses and Abraham and Jesus, peace be upon all of them before. Revelation came to them by way of this angel, Jibril or Gabriel. And then what they heard, they recited, their companions recited it and passed it down.
On the other hand, people who want to say, I read in the Quran, or it says in the Quran, does any of that have any pertinence, that there are texts in the Quran? So maybe my question would be, given that the Quran is the recitation of God's word to us, how is it, what is in this recitation of this gift from Gabriel? I
feel like I'm giving you a hard time.
No, this is great for our audience to appreciate.
I didn't mean to get too far off, because you're right in what you're saying. I just was trying to make it small.
No, this is good.
Almost trivia. I'm sorry. Because actually you are exactly right in what you're saying. I say it all the time. I read in the Quran this, or I heard this and that. But for sure, one thing that nobody should say is that I read in the Quran, God said that He is one, for instance. Why? Because that would be English words.
Right.
And the Quran is only Quran in Arabic. It has to be in Arabic to be Quran. When you translate it, you're not having Quran anymore. What you have is an opinion of somebody who heard something and tried to tell you what it meant. Not God's words anymore.
Now, we are sometimes thinking in serious scholarship, you must go to the original text, be it Hebrew or Greek.
You said sometimes?
Meaning, a lot of people are still very comfortable with their translations. But in the Islamic world, they are not comfortable.
Would not accept it, totally and completely unacceptable, even if you gave meaning of it in Arabic.
I think we have a call from someone on a message about this show. Let's see if they wanted to ask us something. You know, they're asking, if that is so, why is it that not all Muslims are perhaps learning Arabic, which I've heard that is an issue in the Islamic world. The importance of, this is what the person asked, why is it then that people